A week ago I went on holiday to Paris with my best friend. The city of lights, arts and philosophy, and also home to what are now my two favorite bookshops that I've ever been to. So I made a video about it to share this cozy book lover experience with you. A 4-hour train ride and many trips in the metro took us to the city. We of course visited the touristy locations, ate macarons, and wandered through museums whose buildings were just as pretty as the art inside. If the beauty of Paris's art shops was an indication of how beautiful the bookshops were going to be, we were in for a good one. The first type of bookshops you will encounter in Paris are actually outside. Along the river the Seine, there are many small stalls that will sell vintage posters, touristy prints, and old books. However, these books are in French, and unfortunately my French isn't good enough to read an entire book in the language, so we moved on to the two wonderful English bookstores that Paris has. The first bookshop, the Abbey Bookshop, had a wonderful collection of both new and used books. Stepping inside was like stepping back in time into an old library, where you were greeted with cheerful jazz music playing. You had to carefully walk between the narrow pathways, where books were stacked on the ground, and everywhere you looked the shelves reached all the way up to the ceiling. Most of the collection was old cloth-bound and leather-bound books with titles that I'd never heard of, but that I loved browsing through. They also had a wide variety of old second-hand Penguin classics and mythology books. My favorite thing about this bookshop was its vast collection of collector's editions of any classic English books you can think of. Oh yeah. But of course, they also had some good old modern fantasy, my favorite. And tucked away behind these shelves, I found the place where they sneakily store their dishes. And that was the Abbey Bookshop. I didn't end up buying a book here, but then we moved on to the next shop, which was the more touristy English bookstore, the famous Shakespeare and Company, where the book browsing fun already started outside, on this little outside shelf. This bookshop felt like an old cafe that was turned into a bookstore. The poles decorated with vines, a completely wooden interior, and bookshelf ladders. This was one of the prettiest bookstores I've ever visited. They had books tucked everywhere, from old books atop the door frame to Agatha Christie alongside the staircase. I also found this really pretty illustrated cover for Jane Eyre, and beautiful collector's editions of fantasy books like A Song of Ice and Fire. Although I was already in love with this bookshop, it only got better when I found the stairs to the second floor. Underneath the stairs, you could find little gems like writing advice from Raymond Chandler and Elmer Leonard. And upstairs was where the cozy bookshelf vibes were completely amped up to the max. All the shelves were filled with old vintage books, and there was this little corner with a mirror full of little messages that people wrote. People were sitting around reading their books while listening to live piano music. And just like in the Abbey Bookshop, the shelves reached all the way to the ceiling. Going around the corner, I found a small spot with an old typewriter, accompanied by even more stacks of old books. And in the next room, I found even more people enjoying the calm environment, reading their books. Also not unimportant, there was a cat. Which I managed to pet, which made me very happy. After a lot of consideration, I ended up buying 2 books here. Normal People by Sally Rooney, a contemporary fiction which I recently read as a library copy, and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to have a physical copy for myself. If you want to know my full thoughts on Normal People, you can watch this video in which I read the book. And I also got The Yellow Wallpaper, a short story classic, which I kind of bought on a whim. And to make sure it wouldn't end up unread on my shelves forever, I immediately read it the next day when we spent the afternoon in the park behind the Eiffel Tower, where I also ate the most delicious pastry ever. The Yellow Wallpaper is a short story from the 19th century about a woman who was forced to stay in one room without anything to do in order to cure her hysteria. With nothing but the yellow wallpaper to keep her interest, she slowly descends into madness. I was so pleasantly surprised by this story. It was creepy, an interesting look into history, and great feminist commentary, so I'm super happy that I made this impulse buy, actually. And that was my experience visiting the 2 prettiest Paris bookshops I've ever seen. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video so you could kind of experience it for yourself. If you've been here, let me know in the comments, and I hope to see you soon in another video about books very soon. Goodbye!